That was my buddy Troy Plummer. I haven't seen him in a while.
I haven't seen him either. He kind of like stays in that. I see the coaches.
What building are you in?
I'm in the student center. Well,
So if I ever pop over, just
yeah,
go there and start asking where you are.
yeah. If you ask at the main welcome desk.
Yeah, okay.
Ready? Yep.
Yeah, I'm just on first floor.
Just in time.
Hey, buddy.
Obviously, the people are in and out
Yeah.
all day.
Where am I?
I brought you water.
Did you see what Rick brought you?
Calling to order the meeting of the Southeast Polk Board of Education. It is February 3rd, 2022 at 5:30 PM. Karen, can I get roll call, please?
Brett,
Here.
Chad,
Here.
Bridget,
Here.
Tom,
Here.
Lori,
Here.
Whitney,
Here.
Rick,
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Letter B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lupnick, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, there are none.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, Karen?
Chad,
Yes?
Bridget,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yep.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
All right, letter C, district vision and mission. Bridget, could you read that for us?
Sure. Southeast Polk Community School District. Learn, lead, live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you. All right, on to letter D, public comments. The board recognizes the importance of citizen participation in school district matters. Citizens wishing to address the board must do so during the public forum portion of the agenda. Citizens need to complete a public comments card prior to the meeting and give it to the superintendent or board recorder. The public comments cards are located on a table at the entrance and back of the room. If an individual wishes to address the Board of Education, time is limited to 3 minutes. Any group wishing to address the Board of Education should elect a spokesperson. The spokesperson is limited to 5 minutes. The board president will recognize these individuals to make their comments at the appropriate time. When addressing the Board of Education, state your name or group name if applicable, address, city, and agenda item to be addressed. Only those speakers recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others will be out of order. If disruptive, the individuals causing the disruption may be asked to leave the board meeting. The board will not act on any issues presented during open forum if it is not published as an agenda item. Iowa open meetings law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district, board members, or community members. Remarks that are inappropriate, defamatory, or obscene will be considered out of order. All right, we've got a couple public comment cards here. Are there any other ones that anyone else wants to turn in? Nope. Okay, the first one we have is Greg Lyons. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. And I'm celebrating an important date in my life today. 51 years ago, today I left Des Moines and arrived in MCRD San Diego. About this time of day, it got dark before we got off the parade deck and into the barber shop. It was kind of an awakening to me, who had never been away from Iowa, had done all my public school learning in 3 different public schools, Plainfield, Cedar Falls, and Independence. But the one thing about that public education was that, and I believe it still is, since I've taught off and on as a substitute in this district for the last 17 years, And in every one of those classrooms, there's a national ensign, our flag. And I haven't seen one here. I have seen one at other board meetings I've been at in this area, Johnston, for one example. And I'm here to support that in the I don't hold a position in the Legion or the VFW, but I think that's the way we start our meetings. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that that's the way you ought to start yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we have Mackenzie Bills.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Mackenzie Bills, and I am running for the new House District 40 seat here, which is Altoona, Sailor 2, Ankeny 8, Delaware 1 and 2, and Clay Township. I'm running because I was born and raised here in Altoona, right across from Prairie Meadows. I went to Willowbrook Elementary, Southeast Polk Junior High School, and Southeast Polk High School. Some of my principals and assistant principals are sitting here with me, and some of my teachers even. So it's really great to be here. I'm with them. But what made my experience great in living here in Altoona was the Southeast Polk pride that we have. And that comes back to the great education that we have. I have had so many great opportunities because I had an amazing resources and support, whether it be taking trades classes or taking AP classes, or I was able to do a semester at the state capitol as a page. That was because of the flexibility that I had with the teachers that made sure they wanted to invest in my education, my personal well-being. So all that to say, I want to make sure that we are advocating for great schools and great education at the state capitol. You all are experts. You're the experts of Southeast Polk schools, and you are elected to be that voice. So I look to you for your expertise, and I hope that I can be that at the state capitol, but also defer to your knowledge. And so I will be here often and hope to develop relationships with each and every one of you, so we can continue to advocate for the things that we care about and the things that Southeast Polk School District cares about at the state capitol. So I look forward to chatting with you. I've chatted with many of you sitting up here, hoping to chat with a couple others, as well as anyone that's listening. Would please reach out to MackenzieBillsForIowa.com and send me a message. Would love to chat. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. That ends our public comments portion of the meeting. So we will move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. All right. We don't have any action items tonight, so we're moving right into topics for discussion. The first one is the harbor report. Mr. Belger?
All right. First of all, board, I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you for giving us the opportunity tonight to talk about the harbor. And I also want to thank you for putting us first on your agenda. We appreciate that. The harbor is something that means a lot to me. I'm not only proud of it, but excited to work with the staff and students, everything in the harbor. Tonight with me, I have two members of the harbor. First is school counselor Molly Brandhorst. Molly's been with the harbor since 2014. Second person is with me tonight is Dan Klein. Dan's our language arts teacher, instructor at the harbor. Dan has been with the harbor since 2007. Other staff members who are not with us this evening, but also work in the harbor. Miguel Badillo is a mathematics instructor at the harbor. He's been with the harbor since 2011. Beth Krogh, She's a science instructor at the Harbor. Beth's been with us since 2002. Eric Hendrickson is our social studies teacher. Eric's been with the Harbor since 2003. And lastly, Jake Agnich, special ed instructor. He's been with the Harbor just for 1 year. This is his first year. So I think you guys can clearly see there's a ton of experience, on our staff in terms of working with at-risk students. And so we're going to kind of ping pong this approach tonight. I'm going to talk some, Molly's going to talk some, Dan's going to talk some, and we're going to kind of lead you through our presentation. And we'll leave some time for questions and comments at the end. I think we'll lead off with Molly.
There you go.
So I'm just going to start with kind of who does the Harbor serve. Primarily, we admit juniors and seniors. We will admit some sophomores, just kind of depends on what the wait list looks like and where they fall. We try to get the juniors and seniors in first. There's always kind of a commonality with all of our students. Oftentimes they are credit deficient, but more than not, the high school learning environment is just not for them. Alternative just means different. And a lot of our students in the high school, it's too big. Our building is big, and the 2,000 kid atmosphere just doesn't work for some of our students. But again, a lot of times we have students that are credit deficient, oftentimes attendance concerns, truancy. So our wait list, this is a voluntary program. Students aren't just put into the Harbor. It's often recommended by their counselor, administrator. Sometimes a parent recommends it to their counselor, to their student's counselor. Parent and student must agree.
Yep. So I listened in last time, guys, at the meeting. And one of the topics of interest seemed to be the wait list, the topic of the wait list. We call the wait list also pre-Harbor students, because honestly, these kids are waiting. Excuse me, these kids are waiting to get into the Harbor. So we refer to them as pre-Harbor students as well. So I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of clarify some things about the wait list for pre-Harbor students, kind of let you know how we serve those students who are on the wait list, those pre-Harbor kids, and talk about how they get to the list and what order we put them in. Okay. So you're going to hear us refer to a term called the core diploma tonight several times. And so there are two, just as a point of clarification, there are two different types of diplomas that we can earn at Southeast Polk: the core diploma and the traditional diploma. So the traditional diploma is our 48 credit diploma, which is what every student starts off as a ninth grader. And the core diploma is 37 credits. So the difference is there's fewer credits. The core requirements are about the same. The big difference is that there are fewer required courses in the core diploma. And so a majority, almost all the students in the Harbor will earn a core diploma. So I just wanted to kind of inform you of the difference of those two diplomas. And I think Amy might have gone over that, but I just wanted to kind of clarify that as well. And speaking of the core diploma, there are three different ways that you can earn a core diploma. Obviously, one, tonight we're going to talk about the Harbor. A second way you can earn a core diploma is through the DMAT consortium. I know Amy talked about that last week a little bit. And the third way you can earn a core diploma is taking classes in the high school setting. Okay. Just as long as you satisfy the requirements of the core diploma. So in the Harbor, the consortium, and then in the high school setting as well. Those are the three ways that you can earn the core diploma. Okay. Like Molly said, this is a voluntary program. Kids aren't necessarily placed in the Harbor, for one reason or another. They're on a list in that we have parent consent. We usually have an intake meeting with those students and their parents just to make sure that it is a good fit. But those students, this is a program that they choose and they want to be in. Okay. So the wait list itself, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, Steve and I kind of created a little formula, to how are we going to determine who gets in next, right? Like what order are these kids going to be accepted into the Harbor? So I'm going to be honest, Steve did most of the work, but I could take credit for that. I probably should have, but the categories in this formula are are basically the age, whether you're a senior, junior, sophomore, or freshman, credits earned and number of credits deficient. Okay, those are put into a formula, and at the end, onto a spreadsheet, the student will be given a number like 23.1, 25, 16. So they're sorted in order. So we know basically how at risk are these kids that are on the list. So it's kind of like at the NFL, they have a quarterback ranking. Okay, that's kind of the similar circumstance that we have in the harbor when it comes to identifying our kids. So if you think about it, the older and the more credit deficient a student is, the likelihood they're going to be higher on the list than a kid who is younger and less credit deficient. So that's kind of a little bit about the list, how we came up with that formula. Listening in last week, there were some questions, what are these students that are on the wait list? What are we doing with those kids? So I want to just talk real quick before I turn it over to Dan, some of the interventions that we provide at the high school for those kids. Between the administrators, the counselors, the families have multiple conversations with these kids that are on the list. Just making sure that they're on course, on track, they're doing the right thing. So when they get into the harbor, we're in good shape. Makes different schedule alterations. Kids can, for whatever reason, it just wasn't working, like Molly said. And so we could make schedule changes, instead of a full day, because that's not working, we could go part of the day. We could go half day class, half day Edgenuity. We could go credit recovery, some into the high school setting for some. There's just multiple, the DMAC consortium is an option. There's multiple interventions that we provide these kids that are on the list. I guess our overall goal for these kids that are on the list is to start off, find success and earn credits while they're waiting to get into the harbor. Academic support lab. I know Steve has talked about that at board meetings in the past. Kids are in academic support lab. They're in 9th and 10th grade that are on the list. MTSS, students will be in MTSS as well. But basically we want to get those kids, at least if they haven't started earning credits, continue to have those kids earn credits and be successful while they're on the wait list. So when they get into the harbor, they already have credits in the bank. We don't have to start over with those kids. Okay. I think I left. Oh, and then Edgenuity is a supplemental resource as well for those kids that are on the wait list. Okay. So that's a little bit about the wait list. At this point, I'll turn it back over, I believe, to Dan.
Oh, sorry. What's the next one there? Okay. What the harbor looks like. I think before I answer that, just looking at that 37, that number 37, that's the credits that they need for the harbor track. And it's 8 English, 6 math, 6 science, 6 social studies, personal finance, health, and 9 electives. So it's all those numbers are the same as Southeast Polk's, except the electives. And one of the first things I do with the student, is a staff member sits down with them and helps them become an active participant in tracking their own credits. And that usually involves sitting down with them with their transcript and counting. How many English credits are you coming in with? Whatever that number is, that's your starting point. It's 4 out of 8. You're halfway there, whatever. But each quarter we do that. It's a harvest, and it does build some momentum where it feels good now. But that number 37, once we get them invested in that, and one of the first crews we do is we'll look at the average gross earnings over a person's lifetime who has a high school diploma versus without, just to do it. And it's usually right around just over $500,000. So if we divide that by 37, we can get it to what each one of those 37 is worth to you. Go take into consideration that the harbor does quarter credits. We do quarters, so half credits. We usually get it right around about 15,000 per credit, half of that, around 7,500. And then that's per class. When you pass that class, and we can break it down per day and get it to, it's usually per class, we're going to meet this many times, around $200 an hour. And I'm like, you would put your phones away at a job to make this kind of money, but to get them thinking about it in terms of value and invested in it. And then we doing it each quarter gives us an opportunity to put our veteran students in a leadership position. Our style is more of a theme-based expeditionary type of learning. We can get some synergy with it, but each core class is studying that theme and fitting in those cores, but using that content. So the other day when we're doing World War II right now, Miguel's class is coming in from math. They've already learned a little bit about the Norden bomb site that was used in the calculations, and we're reading a book called Unbroken. And so that momentum that energy goes. And the theme base is more opportunities to bring in expert speakers, to do some field work. We've done, on one of these slides, they have a list of our examples, and one of them is Vietnam, and we'll probably be able to take our students maybe to, it's the Gold Star Museum. And one of the books we were covering there involved POWs, as does Louis, but they have a vet who spoke to my students who'd been a POW for 7 years. And it's just powerful. And it's a way of creating a connection to the content. And if they have that, it's another connection to school, and just try to get some momentum of them getting entrenched and coming to school every day and doing the work. I kind of rambled there, but I'm gonna back one more.
So just kind of a picture of what the harbor is again. What does it look like? Like Dan said, we operate on a quarter schedule, which means we can bring students in 4 times a year, which means students graduate at those quarter breaks. Dan said each of our classes are half credit, kind of allows us to focus in on maybe the area that they are credit deficient in. Maybe they're caught up in their science credits, but English, I need to tack those in a little bit more in 1 quarter. Small class size, we allow no more than 11 in a class, which lets our students work more one-on-one with their teachers, allows for us to build relationships with our students. So like Dan said, getting them coming to school consistently. We do have an attendance policy because our kids need to be in school. We don't have homework, so everything is done in class with the guidance of their teacher. So we allow 9 absences per quarter. These are things for doctor's appointments, who don't feel well. COVID and therapy are excused, obviously. So classes, we do look at dropping classes on the 10th absence, because at that point they've missed potentially 20 to 25% of their classes. The likelihood of them passing that class gets smaller. So then we start to explore credit recovery options with those students, still trying to get them to come to school, but just changing what their day looks like. We have somewhat of a shortened schedule. Monday through Thursday, we go 8:45 to 3 o'clock, as opposed to the 7:50 MTSS or 8:30 first or second block schedule like the high school. Ending, like I said, at 3:01. Fridays, we devote most of our Fridays to homework help. So it's a half-day schedule, 8:45 to 11:40. So like I said, we do homework help some of those Fridays. Other Fridays, we bring in expert speakers that relate to our theme-based classes. Or we may go, like Dan said, to the Gold Star Museum, something like that. We try to implement some field work or field trips, I guess. We've done Meals from the Heartland this year, which our students love. So we try to do that twice a year. And then just maybe some relationship building, whether that's mini golf, bowling, just to build that relationship with our students, because that's what's going to get them to come to school, is having an adult in their life that genuinely cares. And then Dan already did the next slide.
I was told I'd be able to see the slides. I don't have my glasses, sorry. Yeah, the smaller setting, the relationship building and the theme-based learning. It's a really good combination. It also lends itself to more things that seem more relevant to the students. And the more, it's not just about that 37, the more doors that they start to see that it can open up to them, something real. That's what we're trying to do. So I feel like the harbor, we're really good at what we do. It's just getting to the point where we need to expand it. Yeah, so that's all I've got.
So I remember Dan talked about theme-based learning. And it is a big part of our afternoons in the harbor. I remember my first quarter in the harbor as an assistant principal, former baseball coach, right? Theme was baseball. So they had me at hello. So I've been a big harbor fan ever since. I'm sure that was unintentional, but I appreciate it nonetheless. So this next slide, guys, has really got two pieces. And, it's got a picture and then a timetable. In the picture, I mean, this really illustrates our enrollment spike. We started the graph. I know this is kind of hard to see, but from the 08-09 school year, looks like we're at about 1,750 students. Where we sit today, the 21-22 school year, we're at about 2,250, projected to be approximately 2,400 for next year. So you can see the gradual spike. We're all aware of it. We've talked about it in meetings before. Then on the other side is the staff timeline. The harbor was established in 1998. At that time, it had a little over eight and a quarter full-time staff members devoted to the harbor. From 06 to from 06 to 2012, had approximately 7.25 staff members serving the harbor. And then where we sit now in the 21-20 school year is about 5.5. Those are approximates because they're different time periods. Okay. And something to keep in mind too, during that time, I believe it was in the early 2000s, we used to have a program called the Oasis. Oasis had, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but two full-time counselors, basically serving those kids that I mentioned earlier that were on that wait list, kind of the pre-harbor kids. And then, I think one of the counselor ended up retiring and one took a job in their district. And it was at the time that we had budget cuts, so those were not replaced. So that is, this slide is really, honestly, as I look at this slide, it's more of a tribute to the staff, how we're able to be so successful. Dan mentioned we're 80% successful graduation rate, which on the surface doesn't really sound great. But when you think about the kids that are coming into the harbor, those are the kids who are at risk and at risk of not graduating. And to get 80% of those students through, I think is remarkable. And so I think more than anything, guys, in this slide, I think it's a tribute to the staff, Dan, Molly, and the rest of the teachers for doing a tremendous job of not only getting these kids their credits and getting to graduate, but forming relationships with these students and having them find success in whatever that is for them. And so, the obvious is, we're growing, our students are coming to us a little more at risk each year. And in the next slide, Dan will kind of talk to that a little bit, so as we grow, at some point, staff in space are a couple of things that are on the list to shore up a little bit and to help the program. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. This next slide.
I
This
felt like
is,
I forgot something, but I
no,
didn't.
it's fine.
That's
It's okay. I think the irony is we'd be less nervous if you all were alternative high school students. But I think this just represents the wait list for each year. The average number of credits each student on the wait list had during that year. So as we've become closer and closer to the present, that number is trending down, which I think reflects the at-riskness of our students if we're doing the same number, 45 every quarter, every year, and we haven't increased it, with Southeast Polk's enrollment. And then the last one, the current wait list is, reflects the change that they made. So it's all 10th graders. So it's not that it's a huge drop, but still a trending down, I think. So, and that number, regardless of what they have when they come in, that number is 37. So, yeah.
I just want to point out with the wait list, like Dan said, they're primarily sophomores. On our wait list right now, we have 4 juniors who all wanted to stay on the wait list. They're doing, fine with what they have scheduled in the high school. So we have 4 juniors that turned down spots, 31 sophomores and 7 freshmen. That's a high number.
How many freshmen?
7. So we have several students on our wait list. We've never had that many sophomores before. The number on the wait list kind of ebbs and flows. I just brought in 10 new students at semester. So 6 juniors and 7 juniors and 3 sophomores, I think, around there. So just that number on the wait list to me makes a big kind of, I don't know. It just makes me think we have enough on our wait list to house another harbor. But the next slide, we've mentioned the consortium, and probably several people don't know what the consortium is, so we thought we'd kind of inform you on that. Basically, it's an off-site credit recovery that's located at a DMAC location. Most of our students go to the Southridge or the Ankeny. Say most probably go to Ankeny. It's something that is recommended by their counselor or administrator, and I make the referral. And so it's paid for by the district. This current amount right now, we have 42 students that are enrolled. Some of that 42 have actually graduated. We've had 5 graduate this year, but at count date, we had 20. And then after count date, I've referred 22 more. Each year, I feel like I'm making more referrals, and they've changed it. It's always been 17 to 18-year-olds, but they've kind of been okay with our judgment if we need to refer younger students, but DMAC has contacted us and let us know that they will only take 17 and 18-year-olds, just primarily second semester juniors and seniors. Credits transfer back toward our core diploma. And then, like I said, I monitor the progress. We have a graph here looking back since my first year. We have about a 36% completion rate when they are referred to DMAC, as opposed to if we can maybe get them into the harbor, hopefully have that 80% or higher completion rate. And then
Just one quick slide here, guys, and then we'll open this up for questions or comments. Last slide's pretty self-explanatory. It's the traditional diplomas versus the core diplomas. In red, you can see in the lower right-hand corner, we went from the 14-15 school year all the way through last school year, and then some projections for the rest of the school year. So in the 14-15 school year, we had a little over 7% of our students earn a core diploma. Last year, we were up to 13.5% of our students earned a core diploma, and it's projected this year that it'll be a little over 20% of our students will earn a core diploma. So, if you just look at it real quick, we've almost tripled the number of students who are earning core diplomas from the 14-15 school year through this year. Okay. At this point, guys, we'll open it up for comments, for questions.
What year did we switch from a Southeast Polk diploma and a Harvard diploma? What year did we switch? We had their own diploma.
Yep. The way it sits now is when students graduate from Southeast Polk, whether it be from the Harbor or a core diploma or a regular traditional diploma, it looks the same.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
What year did we change when we just had a Harvard diploma in their own ceremony? What year was that?
I think it was between Connie and Jerry, I think. Or maybe it was.
I think it was.
the last year that they had their own ceremony was 2013.
Okay, so we had switched to the core.
We
And-
switched to just calling it a core diploma probably 3 years ago. The diploma always said Southeast Polk Community School District, but then it had the Harbor emblem. but there were several students earning a Harbor diploma without stepping foot in Harbor. So, and Harbor diploma or diploma, Southeast Polk diploma is still a Southeast Polk diploma. The transcript is still going to say Southeast Polk Community School District. So then we went to just one standard diploma.
Got it.
So they just all look the same.
No,
Like
just
you said,
two
it's
different
pathways
with
to the-
different credit amounts.
Back when the Harbor had facility,
Yeah,
there were students that would graduate with what we're calling the core pathway that never stepped foot into the Harbor. So
right.
the core pathway has been around traditional high school students for over a decade.
Yes, and I remember, I know 12 and 13, and you said to 14, 15 is when we gave up their own ceremony.
My first year was the last year. of our own ceremony. More students were choosing to walk in the.
The
larger
regular
ceremony.
ceremony with their families there, then, okay.
So I have to say that theme-based learning, it's very exciting. I love that idea. And to me, it seems like everything gets integrated together. So the story makes more sense to the student. So I'm very impressed with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do have a question. So I was looking at the numbers in the past versus present slide, and I now understand that the Harbor moved into Southeast Polk right around the same time frame. So is that why, are you guys sharing administrators? Is that why the numbers different like that?
Yeah, it used to be off campus,
Right.
kind of north of Altoona. I think at that time it was decided that an administrator for that building is appropriate.
All right. And then the credit recovery specialist isn't on there either, but so is that every teacher who does credit recovery discussions with the students?
Yeah, so credit recovery you can handle a couple different ways. In the Harbor, Molly schedules a credit recovery class inside the Harbor, and that is with one of our 4 core teachers in the Harbor. Also, we have an associate managing the credit recovery room for high school students and or Harbor students to attend.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to commend you. This is one of the programs I really strongly support. I think it's been well organized, well executed. It serves a huge purpose. I'm not a fan of the fact that it's in it's in a good location. It's in the first floor of the high school, but it's in a family consumer science hallway that it was built for. When I visited the Harbor several times prior to the pandemic, and to see them, using easels for whiteboards made me uncomfortable. I know things are better now because I think there's clever touches in those rooms, which I'm sure makes Dan and the others a lot more thankful, but still, they're just not in the right classroom. And I heard Molly say, and I hope all the rest of you heard her say, we have enough students to have 2 Harbors. And that's the summary. That we have enough students for 2 Harbors.
Yep.
No, I need to say it a third time. 31 sophomores, I don't even know what to say. They showed you how successful it can be. They've got the right teachers, they got the right size with 11, I think 11 per roster is perfect as a former special ed teacher. They counsel their students, they follow their progress. As Dan and Molly said, they talk about credits, they talk about how much money each class is worth. I wouldn't have thought of those great things. And at the same time, kind of a side part of the Harbor is the high school doesn't have a really good family consumer science program because we're using their hallway for something that should be somewhere else in a normal classroom. I hope this district, and I hope I'm around to see it through, because the need is tomorrow. It's not. But when when the new middle school is built and we move the 9th graders to the junior high and the 7th graders to the new building and the 6th graders go to the new building, it would blow my mind as to why we wouldn't use Spring Creek as the site of the harbor with real classrooms, with real space, and expand to 6 or 7 teachers. At one time we were over 8. Why would we cut? And I know cuts are hard. I'm not here to argue that, but the need is there. I mean, the need is obvious. We either need 2 harbors or we need to expand the current one to 6 or 7 teachers, just, times 11, because they each have 11 to make it go to 66 or 77. That's just my opinion. And, and I also visited prior to the pandemic, a lot of schools, and I was at the junior high and I saw their little program before school, and they take coffee to teachers. They took hot chocolate and little treats. Where does that class go if the high school doesn't have a foods class? I mean, where does that, it just doesn't go anywhere. That's the answer, because the space is the harbor. So we need to commend these people for doing above and beyond. And Scott Belger is doing a great job as their administrator, and under Steve's, leadership. We really, in my opinion, I'm one of 7, think we need to support this. We need to see it grow. They've proven the need. They've proven the success. These kids, and I've asked for, I don't get it, but I think besides having, Mr. Belger mentioned some counselors and some type of program before that looked at those kids or helped those kids that were on the waiting list. We need, with our, at-risk money that I've asked for a couple times, who's getting paid that money? And are they doing any direct services for our students? Because that's what our kids need. They need direct services. And until we can get these kids moved into a nice classroom with expansion, can we please think about getting some people at the high school, 2 or 3, that would work with those kids on the waiting list, those kids taking harbor classes that are not even in the door, like you said. I mean, somebody needs to give direct services to those kids. And I just feel, as a former special ed teacher, a former person that worked with at-risk students myself, we have such a great program, but we just need to make it a priority to give them what they need. That's my spiel. So thank you for what you do.
You go.
You sure?
Yeah, you go first. I got something to say.
Legislative wise?
No.
No. Okay. When you talked about the scale that Steve did all the work on,
He's my boss. I got to give you credit. Right?
I hear you. I get you. Could it be that you would have, because when I hear, what was the number of sophomores, 37, 31? Okay, could be 37. Anyway, could you have junior or sophomores that maybe are a little more, they're on that bubble more than, because you got 4 juniors that are opting to stay. So was that because maybe they weren't as near as severe, I guess, as what? Because obviously if they were, it may, do they really have is it a 50-50 choice or do you sway them like, yeah, you really need to really think really hard about coming to the harbor?
Yeah, during that intake meeting, we lay it all out there, and Molly lays it all out there and just kind of gives the pros and the cons of all of our programs. And at the end of the day, it's the parent and the student will make the choice.
I think that, the 4 students that turned down the spot, I think that's a credit to the program that they are getting while they're in the wait list. They might have started on the wait list a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and they found a way to make things work and they're finding success. And even though they originally had wanted to be in the harbor, by the time they got up to that level, they chose not to. So I think that's a credit to the support that people are providing. The way that formula is not anything really super mathematical or creative. It is basically students are, to be on track, need 6 credits per semester to get to that 48 credits. So however many credits short of being on that pathway, that's how many credits deficient you are. That's worth 3/4 of the weight. So 1/4 of the weight is how many credits you've actually. old formula used to be just based off of the number of credits that you have. So we had students that would rise up the waiting list that really weren't credit deficient. And then our kids that were credit deficient struggled to ever get into the Harbor. So what this adjustment is, it tried to identify some of those kids that were maybe more needy of this type of programming as opposed to just the students that were older that had the most. Well, that makes.
Yeah, I think I get you. So kind of take the board through maybe a little bit of, you have those freshmen, those sophomores, and then those 4 juniors that are getting that help. What is that? Is it the consortium?
Mainly kids that are freshmen, sophomores that are not just on the wait list. Our academic support lab is really where we've identified about 60 kids per grade level that need more on top of support. They're, instead of in a large study hall, they're in a small group with about 5 other students with one of their teachers. That's really just providing academic support for them, helps communicate with all their other teachers to hopefully help them earn as many credits as they could, as opposed to maybe having a less structured support system like our general study hall.
So that teacher that would be in that study hall, is that part of their regular daily duties, or is that?
Each one of our teachers that do academic support lab, they teach 6 classes. They have a planning period. Their duty period is academic support lab. So the 5 kids that maybe would be assigned to them in academic support lab are from their English class or their social studies class primarily. So it's one of their students they already have. It just gives them extra time with that student to try to have some problem solving, case management. You know, maybe they're struggling in other classes. They can help them do kind of that liaison with other teachers. Progressing exercise.
So the consortium, and I've heard that over and over, and I know we've sent some students there to kind of help with other issues. How much is that, would you say a percentage of the students from the Harbor continue to go there? Or once they're in the Harbor, do they go to the consortium?
Some of our students, if they're unsuccessful for 2-3 quarters in a row, they've lost their classes and stuff. Those are usually the students that are then referred to the consortium because they just need that more flexible opportunity of the consortium, because it's not a attendance requirement. They expect you to be there a certain number of hours a week in order to be successful. Those tell students, in order to be successful, you have to go. Sometimes they're choosing that the Harbor just isn't the right fit for them, but some students do go from the Harbor to the consortium and vice versa. I have a few students that, some of those students on the wait list are at the consortium waiting. They may have been referred before DMAC decided the 17 to 18-year-olds, if they're already there, sophomores, they can keep attending the consortium. Some of those students are on my wait list and will, if that's not working, and call and offer a spot at the Harbor, they generally come to the Harbor. So some students are there waiting, that might be what they're trying to do, is earn some credits to the Harbor.
Right. So if I leave the Harbor, leave Southeast Polk and go to the consortium, how does that affect our dropout rate? Does that? do we
No,
get
these students are not considered dropouts if they earn a core diploma from the consortium. There are kids that are graduates.
No, I mean, so we sent, I think we sent a couple kids that came to visit us because they had some issues getting along. Is that right?
I believe you might be talking about Edgenuity, Brett.
Is that engineering? Okay. All right. So our dropout rate really isn't affected by attending. We still get the credit. If they go there, they can fulfill their.
Yes.
Right.
The student at the consortium decides to no longer be a part of their credit recovery program and enter into the high set program. At that point, when they become officially
Okay. And then do we know what our dropout rates have been since we've been back in the high school? I know the last couple of years we kind of throws a monkey wrench into that, but from the time that we went from a individual building to back in the high school. And again, there were some advantages that I did like. I wasn't a big fan of when we went back to the high school for the fact that the way it was designed, but they were able to go back in and I see, you know, they can go to this class or they can go to this class. And so I'm not for moving back into northern Altoona like they were. I like what Rick's talked about. If we move it to Spring Creek, they still have access to that, but well, do you know what off the top of your head, or is there anything on that dropout rate, how it's
I'm sure
been?
Steve does.
We have a district dropout rate. We don't have a dropout rate for students that were in this program versus that program. With me right now, but I can always find.
Yeah, okay.
Dropout rates have been the last few years.
All right. I just asking if that maybe have some, you know, how that affects, I guess. Because you're right, there are some kids that just do not want to, they left the high school or they choose to leave the high school for certain reasons. They don't want to be there. And then, I mean, a hallway doesn't really give them that much separation, you know, and then, you know, some of the reasons that they left, they're now coming back into the same building, but they're, but anyway, 25% funding goes towards at-risk general fund. And then the rest is, explain, can someone explain how that funding is for at-risk?
Mr. Belger's 25% assigned to the.
Well, not his,
Oh,
as far as funding, because I know,
Funding?
I thought at
Yeah,
one time
overall
that
funding.
at-risk funding was, we paid 25% out of general fund and the rest.
So there are two different things regarding at-risk
Turn it
funding.
on.
One of the at-risk pots is related to our certified enrollment and how those kids are classified. That's about $200,000 or so. The other piece of at-risk funding we refer to as dropout prevention. Dropout prevention is driven by number of students, whereas there is a 25% district portion of the general fund that goes into that pot of dropout prevention dollars to be used for at-risk students. This is the same money that comes that you approve annually within the allowable growth factor, within the dropout prevention application. Dropout prevention is paid for 100% with property taxes. So the 25% you're referring to is a district share, in-kind share for the dropout prevention piece that's calculated by the formulas within the State Department.
So having the harbor general fund piece of what we have for staff is 25% of what? That's what I'm not catching on.
Okay, so all of it is general fund. Everything comes into the general fund. Those funds are tied to and targeted towards the at-risk population of students. So your question is the administration of the harbor?
Just, well, the whole, so back when we did budget cuts back in 2011, when the harbor went back in there, they said we were saving because we were going to take an administrator, eliminate that position because some positions weren't paid through at-risk.
There's Iowa code that says there are positions that can be and can't be paid. Now that's gotten a little more flexible, but I can share with back when the harbor was not in our school building, the administrator for the harbor, since it was in a separate building, could not be paid for from at-risk funding.
But then when you moved them into the building, it could be paid for.
We could pay for them.
So they were paying
portion,
for the
yes,
administrator by moving in, plus they sold the building.
a portion. A portion of the administrator, we sold the entire building.
Correct.
The whole building.
But the administrator it's a quarter of the administrator's time that the harbor gets, and then the high school gets the other 75%.
We do an analysis. I want to say it's 50%. I'd have to look it up. I want to say it's 50%.
Okay.
Well, and I guess that's what I used to remember all this, and over the years
I'll
I can't
remind
remember,
you.
but if we saved money by eliminating a administrator, and it's not just about the administrator, but I guess it's the staffing, is if we can pay for 75% of the administrator through funding being in the building, that's the piece that I think the board needs to understand a little bit better is if we add more staff, how does that affect the general fund? how do we up our at-risk funding and not affect what we're currently doing, or do we have to, or what would we have to do to eliminate things to add more teachers? Does that make sense?
It does. So let me try to answer. So the at-risk funding, the state portion of at-risk funding is based on certified enrollments. That's nothing we can do anything about. And that's around $200,000. The dropout prevention piece is something that we approve every year that's driven by formula. And there's a cap on that based on our expenditures from the previous year. That cap is something we can't move up because it's a state-driven cap, right? So in the case, when you talk about 75%, 25%, I want to make sure that we understand that that's the funding piece of it. The time that we charge, or the cost we charge to administrators, teachers, counselors are based on the times that they spend, or we estimate that they spend based on those at-risk students, which could be different than 75% or 25%.
Okay, so I think now I might get my mind clear. So we have the freshmen and sophomores that go to the other teachers. Are they being paid what? How are they being paid at? Are they being paid by any at-risk funding by helping those freshmen? Or are they just being paid their regular?
I'd have to know who those
Like the
teachers are.
60 per
Well, the
class size.
Because if those kids are at risk, if we're putting money towards at-risk students. So that study hall that Steve mentioned, that they go in and they get that extra rigorous studies or whatever. Is that part of at-risk funding?
Yes, a portion of their salaries.
So
are
they
paid
get,
by
okay.
us, yes.
So essentially, if we not eliminate them, but those teachers just go back to their regular job, could we add more based off of what we're paying into that staff?
Add more at-risk resources.
Yeah, because it seems like we're taking it's like paying Peter to, Paul type situation where this teacher gets some at-risk funding for helping with the 9th and 10th graders. But in reality, we could probably just take that at-risk funding towards another 2 or 3 teachers or something.
I mean, you can transition at-risk funding to somebody else as long as they're working with at-risk students. But if we still employ those teachers, when we employ those teachers still, that may move away from at-risk funding. That will then come from regular program dollars. Am I answering your question? Mr.
I think so. And I'm just trying to, because I agree with Rick. I mean, I think you've got freshmen, sophomores. I'm concerned, when you have the 31 sophomores, it seems like maybe there might be some more at-risk people there than maybe some of the juniors, but when you only deal with juniors and seniors, it's kind of hard to put a sophomore up above somebody, and you don't want to say, well, you're not as important. We're going to move the sophomore up over the junior, and the junior's then going to fail, because that's not what the system works out. But am I rambling or am I making sense?
Kind of.
I have a question
I
off
think
of
that
yours.
makes sense.
So, okay, I'll let Tom go, because I mean.
Well, it kind of relates to what you're saying though, but so we have, did you say 42 students enrolled in the consortium right now? Or so around there?
Some of those include the 5 that graduated.
And then how much do we pay DMAC for those guys?
As of count date, it's 48% of the per pupil funding.
Okay.
And then after count date, it's 350 students, $350 per student. And it's a $500 yearly membership fee.
Okay, do we know what that's totaled up this year? No, but I mean, if we don't, like, if we're not sending those kids to the consortium, can we turn that money back around and put it back into the harbor? You know what I'm saying? As far as if we have 42 kids right now that we're paying for. So if we added more staff back to the harbor, then are we going to be able to keep and not have to send 42 students out there, right? So we're going to be able to keep more in-house. We're going to take that money and we're going to apply that 80% graduation rate to them instead of a 38% graduation rate, right? And I guess that was my question as far as, why are we paying out all that money when maybe we could take that money and put it to better use as far as in our buildings with our people?
Can I tag on to your question,
Mhm.
Tom? So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the success rate seems fairly low for this DMAC program. I mean, and the harbor looks like it's doing a great job. Thanks to Molly and Dan and 25% of you. Steve's algorithm, thank you for that. But I'm just wondering, does it translate like that? Or are there students that are not, like you talked about some students that go to the harbor, from the harbor to DMAC or vice versa? Like are they kind of parallel paths or programs, or are they really very serving different needs of students? Like you said that some students just don't fit well with the attendance model that we provide. So could we actually get rid of that program and move those kids in-house and have more success? Or are some of those kids still needing that less structured type of a program?
Yeah, personally, I think if we would move them in-house, our staff would be more effective with them. You know, the thing about the DMAC consortium, it takes a lot of discipline for a kid to get up, get his car started, go to the consortium, do school, come back, then repeat every day. That's a tough ask for a kid who's already struggling. And so that is tough. I think that's why the number is low, because it's a tough ask.
So are we doing the consortium because we just don't have enough room and capacity for those students, or like?
Yeah, that's our next best option. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes for the kids that are freshmen or sophomores prior to the 17-18 kind of hard line, the students that would go to the consortium would go there because the program we need to provide in traditional high school is not enough for them to find success. And before they could get into the harbor, that was the next option that they had.
Okay.
Other students that are at the consortium could be at the harbor and not finding success there. And then go to the consortium as the next level of support, right? So there's two different types of students. We would think that if a student could get access to the harbor, they would have more success than they would at the consortium. If they're a student that hasn't been at the harbor.
So I have a question about the 31 sophomores. Did you track that before this year? Do we know how many sophomores you typically have waiting on the list?
The list ebbs and flows
Right.
every year, so it's a running list, and then as they're enrolled, I move them
Right.
up and keep track of that. I would say this is just the most that I recall
Right.
having on the list at one time. There's 31, but I haven't tracked it for a year on how many sophomores we have.
And I'm not arguing the numbers, it's extremely
This time of
shocking,
year-
but I'm just curious if it's because of the last 2 years of not being able to be in school and all of that, or if what
I think
affected
there's
those
a lot of
numbers.
factors, and then
Right.
you'll probably say this, at this point in the school year, this is when you have more sophomores
Okay.
on the list.
Or at the end of the third quarter and around spring break time
Mhm.
is another entry point. And that's the time that a lot of students graduate. So we do have space that opens up in the harbor. That's when a lot of sophomores would get in that third quarter. So this is probably the biggest number of sophomores we would have on the list at any time.
Mhm.
First quarter of the year, there's still students that haven't even joined the list yet. They're sophomores. So this is kind of like the high end of sophomore waitlist time. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Isn't there a possibility that you might have freshman number grow in this time by the third quarter because they've failed or they've fallen behind? And
Good.
I mean, you're right, trends, there are trends, but I would think the longer it plays out, like you said, spring break, well, then you're gonna have probably a few more freshmen that might have a problem. Hope not, but
I have a couple of observations and / questions. First, I want to say thank you to Scott and Molly and Dan for this presentation. It's been very informative. I feel like I have a much better picture of what the harbor is really about. On the slide 7, past versus present, I guess what really kind of glares to me, and this is a little bit repetitive from what other, or kind of piggybacks on what, say, Rick shared and a couple other board members, but we're looking at that high school enrollment climbing steadily. And then on the flip side, we have the staff for the harbor decreasing steadily. And I mean, I remember back when those budget cuts took place, and remember why. And that makes sense. And then, the sharing of some services. But the one number I wished had been represented here, though, was the harbor enrollment, which I I'm assuming from what I've heard, I mean, we're at 40, it's flat, right? It
Yeah.
was about 40 that day. It's always stayed. So
About 40 to 50.
40 to
Kind of
50.
capacity, just depends on the different schedules. at the time.
So that was just an impression, like, you know, that need is right there in front of us. And my second observation or question was on slide 10, where we have that increase in the core diplomas. And you kind of talked about that and kind of hinted at reasons why that might be taking place, just the increase at risk. But there's some, you know, is it, I guess I'm wondering a little to delve into a little more what you would attribute that to. I mean, and what our goals are. Do we want to see, does it matter if it's a core diploma or not? Would we rather see more kids graduating with the traditional non-core diploma? Is this a good thing? Is this a sign of trouble?
Yeah, I
Or-
think along with kids being at risk, some kids are choosing to go into like a technical or go jump into the workforce and they want to get started. They want to go to DMAT and get that degree or whatever it is to let them, you know, be a welder or be whatever they're going to be. And they, some find the kids that struggle, they may not need all those credits and all that. They want to get started because school is hard for them for whatever reason. So some of them are seeing the big picture, which is good, what they want to do. And this is a pathway to get going on that a little bit sooner for some kids.
Mhm,
Bruce, I would say that our goal is to have all of our kids.
mhm.
When students start off as a freshman, that's the plan.
Right.
We try to keep students on that plan as long as we can. keep students on. You know, someone said something earlier about a second Harvard. You know, I think the kids that are on the wait list right now. My goal would be is to keep as many kids in the traditional high school as possible. You know, to not, second Harvard. So we're talking about schools to try to find those freshmen, sophomore level schools, to try to find success so that, you know, they can stay in that tradition.
Mhm.
So that's another, you know, just consideration.
Right, and building the programs to help pursue that path as well. And then this question wasn't planned, but when Brett was talking about at-risk funding, you know, talking about, you know, the harbor is mostly funded through that and pieces of other instructional, you know, teachers, like at-risk funding doesn't just cover the harbor. I mean, we're not looking at that just being the harbor's money, right? I mean, it goes, there are different pots.
At-risk money and dropout prevention funds anything related to at-risk and dropout prevention. So yes, just not the harbor. For example, some of our counselors' portion of their time and salaries are paid for from at-risk funding or dropout prevention.
Thank you for that clarification.
I have just one more point, and I can appreciate what you say with, we want to keep all of our students on the traditional path. But as the harbor has shown us, not every student is a traditional student. And having the place for them to graduate and get educated and be successful citizens and people, not that they're not people before they graduate, but adults, I think it's great. And if that means a second harbor, it means a second harbor. It doesn't mean that we didn't do our job as a district in getting those students to where they need to be. It means that we found a better spot for them. So I wanted to put that out there so that everybody understands that the harbor is not, it's an alternative and it's a better plan for some children, but it's not a failure. So
Anyway, I would like to jump in here and say, one, and some of you know this, I wasn't a fan when we moved it into the high school from its location. And I think Brett was on what we were on the board when this all took place. And we had put stipulations on moving it into the high school and what we wanted to happen. We wanted them to have their own entrance, their ability to come and go from the campus, expeditionary learning to continue. I can't remember all the stipulations that we agreed to so that it could move into the high school. And I don't disagree that yes, it's great because the students have access to the high school offerings as well as more opportunities. versus coming and going from another location, which is where we had them originally. Most of those stipulations, since we moved to the high school, have been taken away from them. And I think whatever year we moved into the high school, because my memory there is no good, we have remained the same, although the issues and the stresses of being a student today are even more so than when we moved into the high school. So there's more roadblocks for them. And I know there's more opportunities as well. And I think all of you are doing a phenomenal job balancing everything and trying to make sure that we get each one of them an opportunity for their diploma. But I do think, and I've always been a supporter of it being in its own location. And we service all of the kids and we don't wait list them. If we cannot keep them on track with all the other opportunities in the school, we need to double in size for the harbor, and it would behoove us, I think, to put them in their own educational location where the staff can wrap their arms around all of those students and not maybe send them out. And that's just my 2 cents worth. And you guys can agree or disagree, and you know that, and I'm okay with that. But I visited on site before COVID. And I know even 3 years of COVID school, the last 3 school years, that's another reason for the increased numbers. It's not been easy on any student, not to mention those at-risk students. But I personally would like to see us go back to their own facility, their own location, where other people aren't judging what those students are allowed to do or not to do. I just think it'd be better for them, even if we're on the secondary campus still, but in their own location. And Rick, another time I'd like to talk to you about the consumer science, but it isn't because the harbor is there, just FYI, but we should have that conversation with Joellen. So, but anyway, I just wanted to say that I am a supporter, and I was always a supporter of keeping it off site. And I commend all of you for all of your hard work and every student that you guys have pulled through with either a Southeast Polk diploma or the core diploma. Southeast Polk also is a core diploma, but I think we have more students, and I don't want to see them wait to get whatever it is they need if we can help it. And I know, Kevin, that makes you nervous, but it's just something that you have to work around, to think about or plan. So that's all I've got to say.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, have we ever had anybody that? I know we have other students that go in there that's just not because they're lacking credits because they don't want to do the work, through medic, illnesses and so forth. Have we ever had anybody that went to the harbor and then got caught up enough that they went back to the traditional way, or not really tracked?
Maybe.
Okay.
And oftentimes they might start out part-time because they really just aren't sure, and then they choose to go full-time because they follow. And most of them
More question?
want to go back.
Let's see.
Yeah, because I agree with Steve. I mean, we would rather them stay in the, traditional setting. But when you look at 20, what do we got, 2,100 kids traditionally, or 2,000, 2,400? I know the school was built to be 2,400, but 80 kids out of that, getting that, some betterment, I guess, or, a push into the right direction to graduate, it isn't that much to ask for, I don't think. I mean, when you look at 40 out of the 20, so how would that affect if I throw Spring Creek out there because that's what has been thrown out there, but if we go to another close by location, how does that affect the at-risk funding, Kevin?
Those rules have become a little bit more flexible. Mr. Haddad had to look up those rules specifically for the administrator, at least for that location.
Yeah, because obviously we want to look after the general fund, but, you know, I know that calculation of the, and I mean, obviously don't have one clue what the heck's going on with the at-risk fund, you know, how it works anymore, but obviously. But I think I mean, it's not, can you put something together for us so we can, can understand it better, a little more, because if, I can't be the only one that doesn't understand that 25% on how it works. And
Just know that it's all driven by certified.
is it like special education type thing where the funding, you say it all comes from general fund, but the calculation is, so if we have 80 kids that are in the harbor, that changes that calculation, obviously. No?
It's not the number of students in the arbor, it's the number of students that are identified as at risk within our certified enrollment. That's what drives the at-risk portion of this
You're
program.
talking K through 12 at risk.
Correct.
October number at
The
risk.
dropout prevention piece is limited to 5% of our number of students enrolled times the district cost per pupil times 5%. That's our dollar.
That might be where I'm getting caught up, is thinking that just because if you're in the harbor, that's the at-risk piece funding. So Centennial obviously has at-risk kids. Junior high definitely has at-risk kids. It's just how they, okay. All right. That's all I've got.
That's it. All right, anyone else? No? All right, to summarize, we all support the harbor. You guys are doing an awesome job. Thank you. We have to find out where we can get more money so we can make it bigger.
Kevin, share.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Keep up the hard work.
on to the district capital project update. Mr. Haynes. That you wish you would have been first.
I usually do. Evening board. That's a tough act to follow. That was very informative, very enlightening, well put together. They do work hard. I've seen them in action. So, and I've seen them go through the changes from when we were out by the interstate to where they are today. And it's a much better environment, incorporates them with the mainstream, if that makes sense. So now let's talk my capital projects, and we'll start with asphalt.
These are the things that are going to happen in the summer.
Yes,
Is
that's
that the
correct.
Plan.
Yes. The asphalting portions, I believe you all have that breakdown as well. We have the two quotes. Because of the dollar amounts, I have requirements that I have to get a second quote, and I've done so. Grimes Asphalt to look at resurfacing all those different areas, junior high and Spring Creek areas. Totals $865,900. Reynolds Elementary, $160,100. And the old district office has been readjusted to just the drive and the north parking areas in front of the old district office. It's been reduced to $26,200. All total on those is $1,052,200. Second quote, same square footages and specs that I went with on that. Spring Creek Junior High, $952,500. Reynolds Elementary, $176,110. And the old district office drive and north parking spaces at $32,585. Difference between the two quotes that I received is $108,995. So my recommendation would be when we do this, that we went with Grimes Asphalt. And the new products that we're using also is a seal coat that goes down first now. So it does seal better and it adheres better and it gives us longer life for our parking spaces. So in the 21 years, soon to be 21 years I've been here, I've resurfaced those lots twice. And so that gives you 8 to 9 years and you start to see deteriorations, and then that deteriorates quite rapidly. And then it's been in need and before we've ever been able to get back to it. So this new process that they've come up with and with technology, and it's working throughout all the large facilities they've used it on, would give us a minimum of 15 years life to start with. So that saves us a lot of money. It's more upfront, but it saves us a lot in the future. The heavy traffic we get, a lot of it, that it went with different depths that are on the color-coded chart. From yellow, there's a 2-inch resurfacing. The red, where the buses do their drop off and pickup, gets hard traffic area there, it's 3-inch. And then the black would be this line that we did the lane last year, and then this lane here gets a lot of heavy traffic from buses, and we're going with the full 7-inch depth there. Are there any questions on the asphalt?
When do these
portion?
go out for, when do you go out for bid?
I've gotten the quotes already.
So they don't have to go out for bid?
No. they have
You just get to do
engineers.
the
I
work?
just need to get
It's-
2 quotes.
It's slings.
What?
Because these are considered capital projects over the dollar amount threshold of $139,000, they will need to go out for bid. So we can combine the junior high Spring Creek parking lot resurfacing with the Runnels North parking lot finish if we needed to go out for one project. Because we're over the threshold, they will need to go out to a bid process.
So how soon will those go out so that we can start as soon as the kids get out of school?
We'll need to first hire an architect, and then we can get those specs and plans put together with the architect.
So how long, what are we talking? I'm just saying, so we are ready to
Yep.
go on day one.
Yeah, we'll need to find an architect right away with these projects.
What's the architect layout?
Excuse me?
What is the architect, because it has to go out for bid?
Correct.
Okay.
I know, I wish we could, but Iowa law.
Do the companies have time to do the work? Like they know we need it done this summer and they can get us in their schedule?
Right, and pricing on asphalt will be going up this year as well, too.
Okay.
So these prices might go up.
Gary, in between Spring Creek and the junior high, or we're down in the river valley, if you will, roll up. It's pretty choppy. I mean, it's like terrible down there. How do they resurface that? They don't take that old stuff out? Is that?
Yes, they do.
So they will be taking that
Mhm.
piece out.
There's too much loose material there, so they would have to take that out, grind it down, and then replace it.
Okay, I just want to make sure they were going to do 2 inches over crud because with the tennis courts, I know we've talked about that. To me, it kind of seems maybe a little premature to do any asphalting when we are going to be maybe having some equipment go in there and take the tennis courts out and level that hill out or something. Can we maybe
We
bring
can
that to
come
the
to that from the backside if need be.
the
But that has
backside?
been discussed.
You mean like out from over by the softball?
Mhm.
Didn't we
It
just?
would be
redo that?
mobilized on part of that project.
Because I just don't, I mean, I know we did some asphalting over there too, so I mean,
Right.
I
Yes, we
guess
did.
what, is there just a way not to do this lower portion until we get, or bring that tennis court to the top to get that taken out of there? And
Yeah, we can make adjustments
mean-
any way needed.
because I'd hate to have them come in and tear up or risk tearing up the new asphalt when we go in there and dig out.
Sure.
And I guess I don't know what the plan is that we've decided for the tennis court. I know we were talking about half of it to do the softball, but did we decide to
The removal of that is part of the softball project bid.
the whole
of
thing?
The whole thing.
Okay, you did go, okay, I knew we were talking about half, so. Will that be in, so what's the timing then on the softball versus this? It's probably still gonna be behind.
It would coincide
After
as far as I
softball
know.
field season ends. So after
Oh, it's after,
July.
okay. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The demo with the tennis court will come before the actual field work. So like we believe they can do some of that demo work prior to the softball season being over without
So you'll
affecting
do it
softball
before
season.
the season ends
Correct.
on the tennis court.
Correct.
All right, I'll leave that up to you guys. I just was more worried about the, you don't think we need that 3-inch down in that bottom where all that water and, or you think once we get the tennis court out of there and have some kind of better grading?
There'll be some, yeah, it'd be nice to have somewhere in the future to make changes, but we don't know what those changes would be for that area at this time.
Okay. All right, no, thank you.
Thank you.
When are we tearing down the old district office?
Soon, I hope. That's being discussed as well. I've had the pleasure of working with Dirk and brainstorming and things on a lot of different projects, not just this one. So I've enjoyed it, and we've come up with some great ideas. You know, we look at this, well, that won't work, or we look at this, how do we do this? That won't work. 2 weeks later, what about this? That might work. So we've never said no to anything. There's always a way. It's just finding that way that is acceptable for everyone involved. It's just like this, you know, we can answer that to anything. There's other items on here that we've discussed in the same manner. Willowbrook concrete changes. We put to the front of that building is the concrete sidewalk. We've got a narrow piece in front of the island where the flagpole is, if you will. And then we've got a white line there for students to stand behind, but there's no room for those students to stand in there. It's a real tight bottleneck. So it's a risk of somebody falling out in front of traffic and things like that, buses, for an example. So I'd like to bring that further back to make it wider and get rid of a ponding area that's been an issue there. So it's to clean those up, to, you know, it'll make it more appealing. It'll make it safer for everybody involved. We've brainstormed about the Spring Creek building, and we've gotten enlightened a little bit about, you know, possibilities for that again tonight. It's nice that we have options. I mean, the district has a lot of options on what we can do with the growth we have. So that's been long-term planning and looking at down the road with the growth that we have too. So the discussions and the brainstorming have paid off on that end. Where before I've been through times when we had to jump through hoops and make do, and now that's changed. So that's really good progress. Very positive for everyone. Got down here to replace the flooring and step treads in the senior high curriculum side of the building that go up. They've had some wear over the years, so it's time to replace those. It's been down quite a while and gets a lot of everyday traffic use. So we have that listed to get that completed this summer. High school concrete. I put in a budgetary amount of 50,000 because we do have concrete that needs to be continually replaced. We can't do it all at once. We need to keep doing that every summer, similar to when I came here and had a lot of asbestos to remove. I made it a summer project to remove a certain amount every summer. So now we're in really good shape. And my asbestos I have are some tiles on one of the buildings. I think Delaware is an example that we've carpeted over, which is fine until we remove it. Then it's an issue, but we haven't removed it. So.
Gary, what about both entrances into the commons, east and west? I know the east, and I'm just mentioning this because I see the
senior high school.
Yeah, the design that the architects put in the concrete was lovely when we opened the building. But I know you're patching it every year, it seems like.
The sidewalks going up to the building.
And I haven't been up to it.
The west side's been replaced. I replaced
so
it
the
last
east one is the one where there's cracks and you guys are caulking it and covering it and everything. But what's the forecast for when you guys are going to work on that or replacing it as a whole versus patching it? Just put it on the list. I'm not, you don't have to
I'll
answer
add
me
it to the
now.
list.
Yeah. And I know we have to go, we have another thing coming up, but I don't want to take up any time.
Not a problem. We did replace a portion of that up by the doors itself. We had a problem with
Raising that platform
not,
was high.
not being
raising.
pinned together, allowed it to raise and lower, causing issues. So that's been replaced on both sides, plus the entire sidewalk to the west has been replaced.
How about the gym floor or the gym wall?
It's got a bigger crack in it. I looked at it today, as a matter of fact. I did a walkthrough inspection with our insurance carriers.
Really?
Yeah.
It looks okay?
No.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah. They said it's, you know.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's a safe environment structurally, but it's will continue.
It's ebb and flow. Okay.
We've talked about that for many years, for those of you that are new here. So,
Yeah. It's my focus, the whole reason I've been here 15 years.
Watching that crack.
Yeah.
Can I add something else to your list?
Yes.
But I think I've heard this from Dirk before, lighting in the junior high parking lot. If we add lighting, the city wanted us to do some improvements or.
Yeah, it depends on where exactly you're talking about. But yeah, if we got into that too deep, then there would be some code issues versus just resurfacing the asphalt that's there. We can talk more specifically. Yeah.
What I did do on that to help compensate was I added some exterior lighting on the buildings that shine out into the parking lots.
And that's helping.
And that's helped quite a
Oh,
bit.
okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been over there at night for a while. So
I
usually
do
when the
have
football
power,
games.
where the old tennis courts are too, that I could in the future go off of a pole there and add a light as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The plan is then to bring this back for approval on the 17th. Obviously, we heard from Kevin that we'll need some hearings and bids for the asphalt part of it, but that doesn't change for the board approval for the projects to move forward. If between now and then you have specific questions, because there are with the maps and things that are there, shoot me an email, Gary, whoever, and we can answer whatever questions you may have.
So will we have a architect contract at the next meeting? Okay, good to know.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, letter C, open enrollment discussion. Is there anything you want to present?
Yeah, just a quick thing. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the details of the last couple of years of the OEs ins and outs and the just residency ins and outs. This is just an opportunity for further discussion. I would say this, that we're about a month away. Remember, March 1st is the deadline for next year open enrollment applications. And then we as a district have to act on those by law by June 1st. Whatever applications those may be, so.
Any further discussion from last time?
Nope.
I'd like, yeah, I'd just like to do something with the continuation of the high school closed, keep it closed and monitor the rest.
Yeah, I think looking at the numbers that Joe shared with us at the last meeting, yeah, I would jump right in there with you. I'd maybe even take it 612 is probably even a question mark there at this point. And that's something we can just need to watch over the course of the spring of where that goes. Kindergarten is always another one that's just it's a moving target. 2 years ago, well, for 2 years before this year, we had extremely low numbers in kindergarten. And so accepting those open enrollments was a positive thing. This year, we had a large number and we said no to most of those kindergarten applications. So you just never know. And I think the pandemic has made it even more of a moving target. We just don't know what we're going to see. We will start having kindergarten roundups here within the next month. I think they'll be wrapped up by early April. That'll help us have a little bit more idea there.
As I say, I lost my bet thinking that all the kindergartners from 20 would be in 21 and maybe they'll be in 22, Joe.
All right,
They'll be
anything
really
else?
mature.
Huh?
They'll be really mature.
Yeah, mustaches are okay nowadays.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool to have a mustache.
All right, well, let's move on then. Letter E, Prairie Meadows grants.
Dan the Hill.
Oh, sorry, Dan the Hill. Can't forget that down.
That's great.
Never forget it. Just like chill on the hill. but
Except it wasn't
Just during the
that.
day, just during the day.
You know, I attached in there just kind of the schedule of what that day looked like. And Chad, Bridget, and Whitney all had a chance to be part of that. And this is a chance for them to just kind of share a little about that day. It's always educational. It's always interesting to just kind of see what's going on and just the inner workings at the Capitol. I'll say for myself, and then I'll be quiet. You know, there are all the formal plans to go up and fill out the cards and have the legislator come out of their body and talk. And to a T, every time the most effective conversations happen in the lunchroom, downstairs at off odd times, almost by chance and random. So being there makes a big difference. I'll let you guys kind of share whatever you want.
Yeah, who wants to go first?
Okay, so before I went up, I decided which legislators I wanted to talk to ahead of time. And I sent them an email, just let them know I was coming so that I could kind of set up a time. Because I don't know if any of you have been to the Capitol, but oh my gosh, they are in and out and then subcommittees and meetings and trying to eat along with all of that. So if you just try and set something ahead of time, you'll get them. And I actually caught one of the legislators as she was running from one location to another location, eating a salad. So, but it was, well, I've been to the Capitol many times, but as a representative or as a lobbyist, I haven't been. And it was an incredible experience. It's just, I think everybody should do that at least once. You know, I mean, there's always something being spoken about that you're passionate about. And what I did like is during the training, they told us about many different bills and studies that were going on that we should probably watch out for and just pay attention to. And so I have my list of bills that I'm going to watch proceed through the first funnel and the second funnel and through the governor's desk and whatnot. So I think it was a great opportunity, and I really thank the Iowa Association of School Boards for creating this event. And I can't wait to invite some of our legislators to a school board meeting. So that would be fun to just have them see what we do on this side, since we got to see what they do on their side. So.
Bridget?
I would say it was very informative and productive day. It was energizing to be at the Capitol when session is actually happening. I mean, they weren't in session, but during the working times of the Capitol, the energy is far different than when you take a field trip in the summer or, you know. But the training from IASB was super helpful. You know, listening to the updates and the priorities that we were advocating for, you know, talking about the budget and the proposals that were already on the table, what we anticipated to see from the Senate and House, if there is anything we could anticipate yet, and how, you know, how to take what information was available to advocate for the, you know, changes and funding that we would like to see to help, you know, support our school district. I mean, that's the main reason we're there, is to try to help make sure our district and our students are getting what they need. One element of the IASB training, they had a legislative update. There were supposed to be a couple there, but Senator Chris Knoyer was the other person couldn't make it. But it was really informative to hear her perspective and what she kind of thought was, you know, where things were moving forward, clarifying some things, some things that were expressed and answering questions for concerns that a lot of other school board members in the room had. And Dirk and Chad and I had a chance to catch Brian Losi in the lunchroom, and that was a really productive, really informative conversation. I really appreciated that opportunity to hear directly from him. And yeah, I just felt it was really like a real conversation, and felt like we got a lot of information and just dialogue back and forth. So I talked to a few others up by the rotunda that it was a little harder to have that conversation. And, you know, a few others that were just, you know, they weren't at their desk in the chambers at that moment. So I would do it again. So.
Yeah, I would kind of echo what both of you said. It was interesting. It was a little weird. I thought that you're like, I'm used to having appointments and meetings with people, like, and instead you're just at the Capitol and people are running around doing things and you're trying to catch somebody in the lunchroom or you're filling out a card hoping they're around. But we did have some good conversations with Brian Losi, like you said, Rick Olson, Nate Bolton. Tried to catch Zach. He wasn't in, but I'm gonna try to catch up with him actually in the next week. So it was cool to have the opportunity to catch those people and ask questions and kind of see where they're at on things. And you know, obviously our mission there was to get more support for our school district. So I'm hoping that, you know, every conversation we have moves us a little bit closer to that. But yeah, it was a good event. ISB did a great job with they did some advocacy training and like you said, and also giving us an update on all the bills. So yeah, that was a productive use of a day.
I went back the next day, so I will keep doing that. So
Did Brian, Mr. Losi, sorry, did he talk to you about his opinion on the cameras in the classroom bill? And what's really the backing behind that? I mean, I get parents' rights. I think it's a terrible idea. I mean,
We didn't
Yeah,
hear
so-
much about
That
that.
hadn't
Right, and
dropped
that's
yet
the-
when we.
yeah, and the bill
Oh,
didn't come
okay.
out until today.
I was just saying, I
so-
saw it came out tonight
Right.
and,
so-
but just things like that, I just cannot understand why we're putting money towards stuff like that when parents have a right to go be part of their children's education, and watching at home, second guessing what's going on in the classroom is just asinine. When one of the things I think that we need to focus on, at least for maybe, and this didn't come up during priorities because that's not how my mind works when we talk about legislative agendas, but safety and security, we have so much going on with that we don't have enough funding. And I think we as a group should really push, and I've talked to Dirk over and over about this, and it's like, it'd be nice if we could, if they want to put money towards, you know, cameras, let's put them towards something, whether it's personnel, cameras, all that stuff that goes towards safety and security that actually has a purpose. And if we want it to go give parents access to that stuff, fine, then let's do that. But I don't think that's a terrible waste of money. Trying to put a camera, when you look at, Jason, what's a camera cost? $1,000?
About 500 to 1,000.
And how many classrooms do we have at Southeast Polk alone? I mean, so look, look at how much money we could have. Think of the security staff that we could put together, you know, at Southeast Polk for that. And so
There are a lot of safety and security implications that would come about from having cameras in the
Right.
classroom as well. You know, any system that is on the computer is hackable. So you have
Well, and
a
also,
recon opportunity.
yeah,
let's
with
say that
safety
again.
and
There would be an opportunity for hacking, you know, like,
Yeah,
you know,
That's
recon,
true.
you know, where students are all the time. Or maybe parents having access that maybe it might not be used appropriately. So.
Yeah, I think implementation would be difficult. And I do know that there's many daycares out there that have camera systems and codes. And one of my employees, she can jack into her son's, they call them classrooms, but it's a daycare, but jack into their classroom anytime she wants to see how her son's doing. And I don't think they've been hacked, but, you know, and along with safety, it can help with safety if the main office is seeing something that's happening in the classroom before a teacher can, you know, make that phone call or get someone to help them. You know, there's pros and cons to anything that's
But you have to hire
discussed.
somebody to actually watch that. The
Very
secretary,
true.
when you have
But-
the secretaries trying to do their other things, they're not gonna watch the cameras, and so.
Absolutely, you're right.
And watching 400 cameras.
That's a lot of cameras. Right, I mean, implementation is difficult, but that's not on our agenda, so. I
But
guess
anyway,
we'll
my
talk
point
about it
is,
later.
I mean, I think it would be good for the board if everybody's willing to maybe see if we can try to sway them to, and it's probably too late for that piece of it, but you know, if they want to put money to good use, I mean, safety and security is, every school can use it.
Mhm.
I mean, parents are concerned about their kids, you know, in school. Why wouldn't we have security? You know, I mean, and 80% of your budget, when it goes to staffing, you got 20% that then heating, cooling, you know, no wonder there's so many different pots of money there that has to be used this way and this way and that way. And, you know, people think we just, you know, well, geez, you know, can't put in a baseball field because that money is only allowed to be used for certain things. And so safety and security funding, Lori.
I hear you.
Safety,
All right. When you
security,
talk to
and-
your legislature friends again, make sure you throw that one.
I'm
in
all
there.
over it. I'm sure that's the biggest concern. It seems to be something else.
So, but it's not too late, actually, because it's on its first steps in, so we can always talk to them. It's not a done deal, so.
Yeah, I like what you're saying though, Brett. I think that maybe as a board, we could do more to advocate other than just going today on the Hill. I think we could continue that dialogue, and I like the idea of that you brought up, Wendy, of inviting them here, inviting
Right.
them. I mentioned to, I think I didn't get a chance to with Mr. Losi, but with Representative Olson and Senator Bolton, yeah. You know, I did throw out, like, we'd love to have you guys, you can come visit our school, see where this money's going. I think that would be pretty awesome to get them involved with us, be engaged with
It
us.
usually goes over really well when I get to ask questions of them. They've been here before.
Yeah, but it's
I
been
think
some
it'd be a
time.
good idea to
Yeah.
have them come, yeah. I mean,
So-
we also have Garrett Gobble, who's part of his district is part of our district, so we can have many of them come, so that's
Yep.
good.
All right, should we move on to
Grants.
Prairie Meadows grants?
Show us the money.
I've put three things together for the board. And I'll kind of whip through them here backwards. The last one is an out-of-state trip for the new folks. All out-of-state trips come through all of you so that you're aware that we have kids traveling out of state for different activities and events and stuff like that. And as part of our board policy, those come through the board. So that's really why that's there. And you'll see, hopefully as we get further and further away from COVID-19, hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of those rather than so few of them over the last 2.5 years. Obviously, the enrollment piece is right there in front of you. I was just thinking, I was listening to Dr. Lepnick and his comment about enrollment being this moving target, and man, that's the truth. And that's why you'll get about 30 of these every year. Because with any moving target, you want to try to track as much as humanly possible. If there's something to be learned, or if there's a trend somewhere, those are things we always want to know, so that we can do obviously our best work in managing that enrollment. So that's in front of you as well. Last thing, Prairie Meadows grants. Every year, Prairie Meadows has their grant cycle. This year it was a little bit compacted. That's why we've only got 3 projects this time around. I think they kind of rolled it out. It seemed like on the website, the website warmed up just after the first of the year. And then they said, oh, by the way, your deadline is February 28th. And I went, oh boy, that's quick. But we had 3 groups that were right on it and ready to move forward. A group at Mitchellville, one at 4 Mile, one at Altoona. And each time I like to bring these out in a meeting like this, and then next week, or sorry, your next meeting on the 17th, you'll vote on a resolution. It's really the same process we've done forever, but some of you, haven't been here forever. So this is maybe the maiden voyage. Anyway, with Mitchellville, looks like they're continuing the remodel of their library, which has been a project that Prairie Meadows has supported in the past. And then with 4 Mile Preschool, they're really wanting an outdoor learning area, kind of / playground. And then lastly, Altoona has I think it's a 2-phase project going. This would be phase 1 for them, an asphalt walking track, some painting outdoors, and then some blacktop surface games. And then those fundamentally are our 3 big projects for just over $100,000, and that will impact just over 1,000 kids. So hopefully, I would say this: we being the cabinet, we liked all the projects. We hope they are all accepted, and Prairie Meadows, in their infinite wisdom, will say, "Wow, we love all this that's going on at Southeast Polk."
And Joe,
But
just
we'll see.
a quick question. So if anyone puts in an application late, it's too late for the school district to look at them or add them to the list? I'm just asking.
Right,
we
if
only
it's
have
after
3.
the 28th. I might be able to try to squeeze them in under,
I mean-
under that deadline, but if they're after the 28th, even Prairie Meadows won't take them.
Right. I just didn't know if anybody else, the moved up deadline as opposed to last year, it was spring when they were.
Right, well, and
doing-
then there was a year there was nothing.
Right, everything that got applied for that year got pushed to the next year and kind of redone, but,
Right.
okay. I just wondered if anybody that, you said these were on the ball and some others just
Mhm.
aren't quite ready yet.
I haven't heard anything from anybody, and I've talked to all the principals, and usually they're pretty well right on top of what's going on in terms of grant activity in their buildings. This time around, if you look out to the right where it says grant type, the top 2 are community betterment grants, and then the last one is a youth sports and recreation grant. That's our first one of the youth sports and recreation grants that have come through the district and come through all of you. So just kind of an interesting fact. But that's kind of the long and short of it. If there's anything on here you have questions about, or maybe you look at the priorities and go, how come this one's prioritized this way and this one's prioritized that way? Usually, in fact, I just talked to Julie Stewart the other day and she said, "Oh, Joe, we don't care about your priorities." She said, "We're going to do what we're going to do." And I went, "Okay, cool, fair enough." I don't want to get hung up on priority and that kind of stuff, because we could rank them all number 1 just because we do like them all. But that's kind of the long and short of Prairie Meadows grants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All right, we're adjourned.